You were going to marry me without ever telling me the truth!
Ariella, please, give me one more chance.
You already had one.
I came to admire the hotel.
Then start by asking about my work.
Gladly.
Ariella, I haven't only cared about you as a friend. I've loved
You for years. What are you saying?
She removed her engagement ring and placed it calmly on the marble table. Didier begged for another chance, but Ariella walked away. Months later, she met Cedric, a successful, charming man who seemed like everything her unfaithful fiancé had never been. Yet the harder Ariella tried to make that new love work, the more she began losing herself. While Mugisha, her longtime best friend, quietly carried a truth she had never noticed. Before we continue, if you were Ariella, would you forgive Didier or walk away? Tell us in the comments. The lights of Kigali stretched like ribbons of gold beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows of the elegant apartment in Nyarutarama. Fabric samples Ariella Nirabazungu had brought home from her studio was still scattered across the cream marble table beside the cobalt blue sketchbook that had followed her through some of the important projects of her career. But Ariella wasn't looking at any of them. She stood in the middle of the living room in an emerald midi dress, one hand gripping Didier Habimana's phone. How exactly do you plan to explain this? Didier stood several feet away. His charcoal suit was still as immaculate as it had been when he left the office, but the confidence he usually carried so effortlessly had disappeared. Ariella, give me my phone. A short laugh escaped her. There was nothing amused about it. That's the first you want to say, Ariella. No, answer me. On the screen was a string of messages between Didier and a woman Ariella recognized from a real estate event. This wasn't one careless flirtation. These weren't ambiguous messages that could be explained away. There were meetings, words of affection, plans carefully arranged on the same evenings Didier had told Ariella he needed to work late. Suddenly, the engagement ring on her finger felt unbearably heavy. It's over, Didier said. She lifted her eyes. How long? He said nothing, Didier. How long? A few months. The room seemed to grow larger around her. Ariella looked at the ivory sofa they had chosen together. The bronze floor lamp Didier once said would look perfect in their firstest home as husband and wife, and the wedding catalogs resting neatly on the console. Everything remained exactly where it had been. Only her future had moved. Why? I don't know. You do. Didier rubbed a hand over his face. We've been under pressure. You've been busy with Imena leaving. I've been overwhelmed with the new development. We barely had time for each other anymore. Ariella stared at him. Are you explaining what you did or blaming me for it? I'm not blaming you. You just mentioned my career as though it had something to do with your decision to betray me. Didier stepped closer. Ariella, I made a mistake. I know that. But please don't turn this into something bigger than it was. Something changed in her expression. Bigger? I love you. And what exactly did you feel for her? Didier didn't answer. Ariella slowly nodded. His silence had answered for him. He took another step toward her. I was going to end it before the wedding. Ariella froze. Not because she felt relieved, because she finally understood what hurt most. You were going to end it? Yes. And then what? Ariella, you would put on your suit. I would put on my wedding dress. Our families would sit there watching us. I would look into your eyes and promise to spend the rest of my life with you. Her voice dropped. And you were going to let me make that promise without ever knowing the truth. Didier's jaw tightened. I didn't want to hurt you. No, you didn't want to face the consequences. The words fell between them like a door closing. Didier reached toward her. Ariella stepped back. Don't. Ariella, please. 4 years cannot end because of one mistake. She looked at the man she had once planned to build a family with. Then she removed her engagement ring, slowly. Didier's eyes followed her hand. What are you doing? Ariella placed the ring on the marble table. Our 4 years didn't end tonight, Didier. Ariella, they ended every time you walked through that door, looked me in the eyes, and decided I didn't deserve the truth. The color drained from Didier's face. I can fix this. Some things can be fixed. Other things require you to accept responsibility for breaking them. So you're just leaving? Ariella picked up her handbag. No, she looked directly at him. I'm finally refusing to stay somewhere another person has decided how much truth I'm allowed to know. She walked out without taking the ring. Inside the elevator, Ariella's hands finally began to tremble. She had expected herself to cry. Instead, the first thing she felt was emptiness. She opened her phone. Her mother's name appeared in her contacts. Ariella stared at it, then continued scrolling. Kiza was there too. Her thumb moved farther down. Then it stopped on a name so familiar that she had never needed to think twice before calling it. Mugisha Rukundo. Ariella pressed the call button. He answered almost immediately. Ariella? The moment she heard his voice, the composure she had fought so hard to maintain began to crack. Mugisha, I'm here. She closed her eyes. I don't know where to go. There was a brief silence on the other end. No interrogation, no judgment, no demand that she immediately explain what had happened. Then Mugisha simply said, "Send me your location." Ariella leaned her head against the elevator wall. You don't want to know what happened. I do, but you can tell me when you're ready. Her throat tightened. And right now, you just need to know you don't have to go through this alone. Ariella watched the numbers on the elevator panel change in silence. She had no idea where her life would lead after the door she had just closed behind her. And she certainly didn't know that the man who had just promised to come for her had loved her far longer than she had ever imagined. But that night, Ariella didn't need another love story. She needed enough courage not to return to the one that had taught her to doubt her own worth. Ariella Nyirabazungu stood barefoot beside the wide windows of Keza Uwimana's modern apartment in Nyarutarama, wrapped in a soft cream robe she had borrowed after refusing to return home. Kigali looked peaceful beneath the pale morning light. She resented it for that. Somewhere in the city, people were opening cafes, driving to offices, answering emails, discussing contracts, and planning ordinary lives. Meanwhile, Ariella's wedding had disappeared in a single conversation. The doorbell rang. Keza emerged from the hallway wearing a vibrant coral blouse and loose white trousers. That will be him. Ariella didn't turn. You called Mugisha? I didn't have to. You did. Ariella remembered fragments of the previous night. The elevator, her trembling hands. Mugisha's voice telling her to send her location. Keza opened the door. Mugisha Rukundo walked in carrying 2 paper bags and a tray of coffee. He wore a sand-colored linen shirt beneath a dark olive jacket. His usual polished simplicity untouched by the tension in the room. His eyes immediately found Ariella. He didn't rush toward her. He didn't ask whether she had cried. He simply lifted one of the bags. I brought breakfast. Kiza looked inside. Mandazi and fruit. She inspected the second bag. You remembered her favorite coffee. Mugisha gave her a dry look. I've known Ariella for years. This isn't advanced research. For the first time since leaving Didier, the corner of Ariella's mouth moved. Mugisha noticed. He was polite enough not to celebrate it. Keza collected her handbag. I have a client meeting. Ariella turned. You're leaving? Yes. With him here? Kiza glanced at Mugisha. He has successfully passed several background checks conducted entirely inside my head, Kiza. Her friend kissed her cheek. Call me if you need anything. After the door closed, silence settled over the apartment. Mugisha placed breakfast on the dining table. You should eat. I'm not hungry. I expected that answer. Then why did you bring food? Because not wanting breakfast and not needing breakfast are different things. Ariella finally looked at him. You always have an answer. Occupational hazard. You're an architect. Exactly. We spend our lives pretending every problem can be solved if people stop moving the walls. Ariella almost smiled again. Almost. Then her eyes fell to her bare left hand. Mugisha followed her gaze but said nothing. That kindness somehow hurt more. The wedding is over. I know. He was seeing someone else. Mugisha's expression tightened. Ariella watched him carefully. You're not surprised. I didn't say that. But you don't look surprised. I look angry. At him? Did you know? No. The answer came immediately. Ariella searched his face. If I had known, Mugisha continued, I would have told you. Even if it destroyed my engagements. Knowing the truth wouldn't have destroyed your engagement, Ariella. Didier's choices would have. She lowered herself into a dining chair. Mugisha pushed the coffee toward her. Ariella wrapped both hands around the cup without drinking. I keep replaying everything. What part? All of it. Her voice softened. The business dinners, the calls he took outside, the evenings he said he was exhausted. Every time I asked whether something was wrong, and he kissed my forehead and said I worried too much. Mugisha sat opposite her. I feel stupid. Don't. I was planning a wedding while another woman knew things about my fiancé that I didn't. That doesn't make you stupid. What does it make me? Someone who trusted the person she was supposed to be able to trust. Ariella looked away. Maybe I'm simply terrible at choosing men. Mugisha leaned back slightly. Or maybe you're judging yourself for decisions you made before you had the information you have now. That sounds suspiciously wise. I charge consulting fees for anything wiser than that. Ariella gave a small laugh. This one escaped before she could stop it. Then her face changed again. There are deposits. We'll make a list. The venue. We'll call them. The caterer, photographer, florist, one at a time. My mother has already told half our extended family. Then your mother can help untell them. Ariella stared at him. You make everything sound manageable. No, I'm breaking one impossible thing into several annoying things. That was Mugisha. He never promised storms weren't storms. He simply helped find the door before the water rose too high. Ariella finally took a sip of coffee. On the dining table sat her cobalt blue sketchbook. Kiza must have retrieved it from Ariella's bag. Mugisha touched the corner of its cover. You still have this? Of course. I thought successful creative directors graduate to expensive leather notebooks. I tried one, and it had no personality. Meaning, I was afraid to ruin the pages. Mugisha smiled. Years earlier, when Emma living had been little more than Ariella, a borrowed desk and more ambition than paying clients, he had given her that cobalt notebook after she secured her first serious interior design commission. She remembered what he had written inside the cover. Not advice, not romance. Just 4 words. Make something worth remembering. She had. Ariella closed her eyes briefly. Didier wants another chance. Mugisha's smile disappeared. And what do you want? I don't know. Then don't decide because he wants an answer. She studied him. Tell me what you think I should do. Mugisha was silent. Ariella waited. Finally, he asked, do you want my opinion or do you just need your friend right now? The question caught her off guard. What difference does it make? A big one. He folded his hands on the table. If you want my opinion, I'll give it honestly. If you need your friend, I'll sit here, eat too many mandazi, help cancel whatever needs canceling, and keep my opinions to myself. Ariella felt something tighten behind her ribs. Didier had spent months deciding what truths she could handle. Mugisha was giving her the choice, even over what he said. My friend, she whispered. Mugisha nodded. Then that's who you have. No speech followed. No declaration that Didier had never deserved her. No secret attempt to turn heartbreak into opportunity. Mugisha opened the breakfast bag and handed her a mandazi. Ariella accepted it. She still felt humiliated. Still angry. Still uncertain about the life waiting beyond the wedding she would never have. But sitting across from a man who expected nothing from her pain, Ariella understood something she would only fully appreciate much later. There were people who entered this life demanding to be chosen. And there were people whose loyalty became so familiar that you stopped noticing how rare it was. For now, Mugisha was simply her friend, and Ariella had no idea how much that friendship had already cost his heart. The rooftop terrace of the Umuko house, a newly opened boutique hotel overlooking Kigali's green hills, glowed beneath warm pendant lights and polished brass fixtures. Guests moved between sculptural planters, linen-covered cocktail tables, and elegant seating areas designed in soft ivory, terracotta, and deep forest green. Ariella Nyirabazungu stood near a textured feature wall inspired by traditional Rwandan geometric patterns, listening as one of the hotel investors praised the interiors. This room feels expensive without trying too hard, the woman said. Ariella smiled. That was the intention. She wore a fitted cobalt blue dress with a structured neckline and gold earrings shaped like delicate leaves. Her natural hair was swept into a polished low bun, and for the first time in months, she had dressed for an evening without wondering whether she looked like a woman recovering from a broken engagement. Tonight, she was simply the creative director of Imena Living, and this hotel was proof that her life had continued. Keza Uimana appeared beside her, carrying 2 glasses of sparkling water. You've been complimented by 4 investors, 1 hotel consultant, and a woman who owns more property than both of us will probably ever see. Ariella accepted the glass. Are you counting? Absolutely. Keza glanced across the terrace. And now you're being watched. Ariella didn't turn. By whom? Tall navy suit near the bronze sculpture. I am not interested. You haven't even looked. That saves time. Keza smiled. You're recovering beautifully, but your personality has become extremely inconvenient. Ariella finally followed her friend's gaze. The man standing across the terrace was speaking with 2 guests. He looked to be in his late 30s, with a composed posture and the easy confidence of someone comfortable in expensive rooms without needing to prove he belonged there. As if sensing her attention, he looked over. Their eyes met. Ariella turned back immediately. Kesa lifted 1 eyebrow. Oh, don't. I said nothing. You made a sound. A very informative sound. Before Ariella could answer, one of the hotel directors approached with the man beside him. Ariella, I want you to meet Cedric Nshuti. Cedric oversees a hospitality group that is expanding several properties across the region. Cedric extended his hand. So you're the person responsible for making this place look better than the budget presentations suggested it would. Ariella shook his hand. That depends. Were you impressed by the presentation? Terrified by it? She laughed. Then I accept the compliment. The hotel director excused himself, leaving them together. Cedric looked around the terrace. I've attended many openings where the design feels like someone simply bought everything expensive and hoped the room would develop a personality. Ariella tilted her head. That is dangerously honest for someone in hospitality. I prefer memorable rooms. So do I. What was the most difficult part of this project? The question surprised her. Most men at business events ask whether she had decorated the space herself or complimented callers without understanding what her studio actually did. Cedric was asking about the work. The hotel wanted luxury, Ariella said, but I didn't want luxury to mean importing an identity from somewhere else. Cedric listened, she continued. We worked with local artisans for several pieces, used contemporary interpretations of Rwandan forms, and kept the materials warm. I wanted guests to know where they were without turning the hotel into a museum. Cedric nodded slowly. That makes sense. You sound surprised. I am. Why? Because most designers explain what something looks like. You explained why it deserves to exist. Ariella paused. That may be the best compliment I've received tonight. Good. I dislike wasting them. There was something refreshing about his directness. Not aggressive, not rehearsed. At least it didn't feel rehearsed. Cedric gestured toward her glass. May I get you something stronger? No, thank you. He didn't ask why. Then I'll keep you company with something equally unexciting. He picked up sparkling water from a passing server. Ariella noticed that small detail. She hated that she noticed it. They spoke about Kigali's growing hospitality sector, the challenges of maintaining quality while expanding business, and the difference between spaces designed for photographs and spaces designed for people. Cedric never mentioned her appearance, not until much later in the conversation. And when he did, he simply said, "That collar suits you. Thank you." Then he returned to asking about her studio. Ariella found herself relaxing. Across the terrace, Keza caught her eye and smiled knowingly. Ariella ignored her. Her phone vibrated inside her handbag. She checked the screen. Mugisha. A simple message. How did the opening go? Ariella smiled without thinking. Cedric noticed. Good news? My best friend checking whether the hotel survived. The architect? Ariella looked up. You know about Mugisha? You mentioned him during the panel discussion earlier. Something about arguing with the landscape architect over courtyard drainage. That sounds like us. Cedric smiled. He must be important. He is. There was no obvious change in Cedric's expression. It's good to have people who knew you before success made everyone suddenly interested. Ariella studied him. You say that like experience. It is. For a moment, something quieter appeared behind his polished confidence. Then it disappeared. Cedric reached into his jacket and offered her a business card. I'd like to discuss a project with Imena Living. Ariella accepted it, sent the details to the studio, and if the project turns out to be an excuse for what? To see you again. Ariella looked at him. Cedric didn't grin as though he had delivered a clever line. He simply waited. Her instinct was to step backward. She had learned how expensive certainty could become when placed in the wrong man. I don't rush anymore, she said. Cedric nodded. I didn't ask you to. That answer stayed with her. Coffee, he added. Public place. No dramatic promises. You can decide afterward whether I'm interesting enough for a second conversation. Ariella laughed. You negotiate everything. Only things worth negotiating. She slipped the card into her handbag. I'll think about it. I can work with that. Cedric excused himself when another investor approached. Keza immediately appeared at Ariella's side. Public place. No dramatic promises. You are listening? I am a branding strategist. Observation is literally billable. Ariella shook her head. He's just a potential client. Of course. Keza. Her friend raised both hands. I said nothing. Ariella's phone remained in her hand. She opened Mugisha's message again. How did the opening go? She typed. Beautiful, exhausting, successful. His reply came almost immediately. Then you built exactly what you promised. Ariella stared at the sentence. There was no flirting in it, no expectation, just the familiar confidence of a man who had watched her build herself long before other people started admiring the finished rooms. She slipped the phone away. Across the terrace, Cedric was laughing with a group of executives beneath the golden lights. He looked polished, certain new, and after months spent learning how to live without the future she had once planned, Ariella could not deny the quiet thrill of being noticed by someone who knew nothing about the woman Didier had betrayed. Perhaps that was why Cedric felt so appealing. He did not remind her what she had lost. He looked like proof that something else could begin. What Ariella could not yet see was that after a betrayal, a new beginning and a safe beginning could look dangerously similar from a distance. Ariella Nyirabazungu stepped onto the rooftop terrace of an elegant restaurant in Kigali, wearing a burnt orange silk dress, delicate gold earrings, and heels she had nearly talked herself out of buying. Cedric Enshuti was already waiting beside a table overlooking the illuminated hills. He stood when he saw her. For a moment, he simply looked. That dress is unfair. Ariella smiled despite herself. To whom? Every other woman in this restaurant. Careful, Cedric. Compliments that polished usually come with an invoice. Then consider this one complimentary. He pulled out her chair. Ariella sat, noticing the white roses arranged beside the candle. You remembered? Cedric looked pleased. You said you prefer white flowers because colorful ones should be allowed to grow somewhere instead of dying in a vase. I said that once. I was listening once. That was the thing about Cedric. He listened. Or at least Ariella felt listened to. Their relationship had developed with a certainty she had not expected. Cedric made reservations instead of sending vague messages. If he wanted to see her, he said so. When work took him away, he explained rather than disappearing. After Didier, reliability felt almost luxurious. A server poured sparkling water. Cedric lifted his glass. To Imena Living, Ariella raised an eyebrow. What happened to us? We can toast to ourselves afterward. Your studio just secured the Nyota residence contract. She smiled. You remembered that too. You've been talking about it for weeks. I thought I was boring you. You're most interesting when you're talking about something you built. The words warmed her more than she wanted to admit. Ariella touched her glass to his. To Imena Living. So how are you leaned back? This is the celebration. Know what? A contract like that deserves more than dinner. Cedric, I don't need fireworks. I know, he smiled, but I like giving beautiful things proper attention. Ariella looked across the terrace. Months earlier, She had wondered whether she would ever sit opposite another man without comparing every gesture to Didier. Now she rarely thought of him. Perhaps this was healing, not forgetting. Simply reaching a point where the wound was no longer the first thing she carried into every room. Her phone vibrated beside her handbag. Ariella glanced down. Mugisha. She smiled automatically. Cedric noticed. You always smile before answering him. Ariella looked up. Who? Mugisha. There was no accusation in his voice. Not yet. He sent me a photograph. Of? She opened the message. A newly installed courtyard garden filled the screen, framed by stone walkways and young native trees. Ariella laughed. He finally convinced that client not to cover the entire courtyard in imported marble. Cedric smiled politely. You two talk often. We've been friends for years. I know. Something about his tone made Ariella pause. Does that bother you? Cedric considered the question rather than immediately denying it. I wouldn't say bother. What would you say? He rested his forearms against the table. I suppose I'm still learning where I fit. In my life? In the part of your life that seems to have been occupied long before I arrived. Ariella placed her phone down. Mugisha isn't occupying anything. I didn't say he was. You implied it. Cedric sighed softly. I'm not accusing you of anything, Ariella. Then what are you saying? That if we're serious about each other, I need to understand the boundaries. The word landed differently than she expected. Boundaries. It sounded mature, responsible, almost reassuring. Ariella folded her hands. Mugisha is my best friend, and I'm not asking you to stop being friends with him. Good. But surely you understand that certain things change when people enter serious relationships, such as Cedric glanced toward her phone. Constant messages, private dinners, calling each other whenever something goes wrong. Ariella frowned. We don't have inappropriate conversations, I believe you. Then what's the problem? The problem isn't whether you've crossed a line, it's whether we're willing to create one before someone does. Ariella leaned back. She wanted to dismiss the conversation, but another thought arrived first. Dide had used secrecy to destroy her trust. Perhaps Cedric's openness was the opposite of that. He was telling her what made him uncomfortable instead of hiding resentment. Wasn't that what healthy communication looked like? I don't want you feeling like you're competing with Mugisha, she said. Cedric's expression softened. I'm not asking you to choose. I know. I just want there to be space for us to become something, without another man always standing emotionally between us. Ariella looked down at Mugisha's message. A second line had appeared beneath the photograph. You would have hated the original furniture. Normally, she would have replied immediately. Instead, she locked the screen. Cedric reached across the table and touched her hand. Thank you. For what? For hearing me, Ariella smiled. But somewhere beneath that smile was a discomfort too small to name. She ignored it. The dinner continued beautifully. Cedric spoke about an upcoming hospitality investment. Ariella told him about a design concept involving woven textures and contemporary Rwandan craftsmanship. They shared dessert, laughed over a disastrous hotel renovation Cedric had once inherited, and discussed a weekend drive outside the city. By the end of the evening, the earlier conversation seemed almost insignificant. That was how changes often entered a relationship, not as commands, as reasonable requests. Ariella had no intention of abandoning Mugisha. She simply decided she could answer him later. Later became less often. Private dinners with Mugisha became coffee in groups. Calls became messages. Messages became reactions. Whenever Mugisha noticed, he never complained. That somehow made it easier. Cedric did not demand that Ariella close a door. He merely made her feel that leaving it open might be disrespectful. And because Ariella desperately wanted this relationship to be different from the one that had broken her, she began proving her commitment in small ways nobody had explicitly requested. Across the table, Cedric smiled at her. Ariella smiled back. She felt chosen, safe, desired. What she did not yet understand was that healing could make a woman vulnerable in unexpected ways. After betrayal, obvious cruelty was easy to recognize. Control wrapped in concern was much harder. And sometimes the first piece of yourself you surrendered did not feel like a sacrifice at all. It felt like compromise. Ariella Nirabazungu stood before the full-length mirror in her bedroom, smoothing the sleeves of a vivid magenta blazer over an ivory silk blouse. On the bed behind her lay another outfit, a sleeveless emerald dress with a structured waist and subtle geometric embroidery along the neckline. That was the dress she had originally chosen. Her phone rested beside it. Cedric's message remained open. The blazer might be more appropriate for the investors. Elegant, serious, less distracting. Ariella stared at her reflection. There was nothing offensive about his suggestion. That was what made it difficult to explain why it bothered her. She picked up the emerald dress, considered a change in again, then returned it to the bed. The blazer was beautiful, professional, expensive, appropriate. So why did wearing it feel like losing an argument nobody had openly started? Her phone rang. Keza Uwimana. Ariella answered while fastening a gold bracelet. Please tell me you're already on your way. Almost. Ariella. What? You said that with the voice you use when you're definitely not almost anywhere. Ariella smiled. I'm getting dressed. For the investment breakfast, yes. I thought you were wearing the green dress. I changed my mind. A pause. Or Cedric changed it. Ariella's hand stopped. He made a suggestion about your clothes. He knows some of the investors. Kiza remained silent. Ariella sighed. Don't make it dramatic. I haven't made anything dramatic. I'm asking a question. He thought the blazer would be more professional. And what did you think? Ariella looked at the emerald dress. I thought both were fine. That's not what I asked. Kiza, fine, I'll behave. Ariella collected her handbag. On the walnut desk near the window sat her cobalt blue sketchbook, closed. She could not remember the last time she had drawn anything in it. Her designs were now mostly reviewed on tablets, finalized by her team, and presented through polished digital renders. That was efficient, at least. That was what she told herself. I'll see you there, Ariella said. Actually, before you hang up, Mugisha asked about you. Her fingers tightened around the handbag. Why? Apparently he sent you something about a community courtyard project. I've been busy, so call him. I will. When? Keza, why are you interrogating me? Because 6 months ago, Mugisha could send you a photograph of a badly placed tree and receive a 5-paragraph architectural argument before he finished his coffee. Ariella laughed despite herself. Maybe I've matured. Terrifying possibility. Another notification appeared. Cedric. Ariella glanced at it. Remember, lunch with my regional partners after your presentation. She closed her eyes briefly. I have to go. Ariella. Yes? Kiza's voice softened. Are you happy? The question irritated her more than it should have. Of course. All right. You don't sound convinced. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. Ariella ended the call more sharply than she intended. She stood alone in the bedroom, happy. Of course she was happy. Cedric was attentive, successful, intentional. He introduced her proudly at business functions. He sent flowers to her studio. He remembered important presentations and celebrated contracts. Most importantly, he had never betrayed her. Surely a woman could make adjustments for a serious relationship without calling every adjustment a warning sign. Her phone rang again. This time it was Cedric. Good morning, beautiful. His voice immediately softened something in her. Good morning. Ready? Almost. Wearing the blazer, Ariella looked at herself. Yes. I knew you'd look sophisticated. She smiled faintly. You haven't seen me yet. I don't need to. I know you. The words just should have felt romantic. Instead, Ariella glanced at the emerald dress again. Cedric continued, There's been a change. I need you to skip the networking reception after your presentation. Why? My partners moved our lunch discussion forward. I'd like you there. Cedric, I was planning to meet 2 potential clients. You can meet clients anytime. Not these clients. A short silence followed. I thought you'd want to support me. Ariella frowned. This isn't about supporting you. Then why are we arguing? We're not arguing. Exactly. So come. The simplicity of his conclusion unsettled her. Still, Ariella heard herself say, Fine. Thank you. I appreciate you. After the call ended, she remained motionless. First the dress, now the reception. Neither mattered enough to fight about. That was how she measured everything lately. Was this worth an argument? Was that worth making Cedric uncomfortable? Was Mugisha's friendship worth another conversation about boundaries? Little by little, Ariella had started choosing peace before anyone asked what peace was costing her. She arrived at the investment gathering polished and composed. Keza was waiting near a wall decorated with contemporary Rwandan art, wearing a mustard yellow suit that made her impossible to ignore. Her gaze moved immediately over Ariella's outfit. The blazer is gorgeous. Thank you. I still preferred the dress. Ariella gave her a warning look. Kiza raised her glass of juice. I said the blazer was gorgeous. After Ariella's presentation, applause filled the elegant conference room. An investor approached her and asked whether she could stay for the networking session. Before Ariella could answer, she remembered Cedric. Unfortunately, I have another commitment. The woman handed her a card. That's a shame. I wanted to introduce you to someone developing 2 residencies outside Kigali. Ariella's stomach tightened. Perhaps another time. Perhaps. When the investor walked away, Keza appeared beside her. You wanted that introduction. I have somewhere else to be. Cedric? Yes. Keza studied her friend carefully. What? Nothing. Stop doing that. Doing what? Looking at me like I've become some helpless woman who can't make decisions. Kiza's expression softened. I don't think you're helpless. Then what do you think? I think you're making plenty of decisions. Ariella crossed her arms. And I just wonder how many of them are still yours. The words landed harder than Ariella expected. She looked away. Cedric loves me. I didn't say he doesn't. He makes compromises too. Good. Then what's your problem with him? Kiza shook her head. My concern isn't Cedric. Then what? Kiza held Ariella's gaze. You. Ariella said nothing. Kiza lowered her voice. When did you start explaining your relationship more than enjoying it? For once, Ariella had no defense ready. Her eyes drifted toward the window, where Kigali stretched bright and beautiful beyond the glass. She thought about the green dress on her bed, the networking opportunity she had just surrendered, Mugisha's unanswered message, the cobalt sketchbook collecting dust. None of those things seemed important individually. Together, however, they formed an uncomfortable picture. Ariella picked up her handbag. I have to go. Kiza didn't stop her. As Ariella walked away, she told herself that compromise was part of love, that serious relationships required adjustment, that independence did not mean refusing to consider another person's needs. All of those things were true. But Ariella had not yet learned the question that mattered more. If compromise always requires the same person to become smaller, is it still compromise? And somewhere between the woman she had been and the woman Cedric found easiest to love, Ariella was beginning to disappear. Ariella Nirabazungu sat at the long walnut conference table inside Amena Living, staring at 3 revised budget sheets spread before her. Beyond the glass walls of the studio, Kigali's hills softened beneath the late afternoon light. Inside, fabric boards in saffron, emerald, and indigo covered one wall, while samples of locally woven textiles and contemporary Rwandan ceramics filled the shelving behind her. Usually, the studio made Ariella feel powerful. Today, it felt like something she might lose. One of Amena Living's largest residential clients had unexpectedly reduced the scope of a major project. Nothing illegal had happened. Nobody had cheated her. The client had simply changed direction after financing became tighter than expected. But the decision left Ariella with a difficult problem. She had employees to protect, suppliers waiting for confirmation, and 2 smaller projects that would not generate enough revenue to comfortably cover everything she had planned. The studio door opened. Cedric and Shuti walked in wearing a tailored cream jacket over a black shirt. You're still here. Ariella looked up. Where else would I be? Cedric placed a paper bag on the table. I brought dinner. She glanced at it. He was sat beside her. You sounded worried on the phone. I am. Cedric examined the spreadsheet. How bad? Not catastrophic. That usually means bad. It means uncomfortable. Ariella pushed 1 page towards him. If I postpone the furniture procurement for the Muzan's project and renegotiate the installation schedule on the Kivu residence, I can protect salaries without cutting staff. Cedric frowned. And exhaust yourself doing it. I'll manage. You always say that, because I usually do. Cedric leaned back. Ariella, maybe this is an opportunity. She looked at him. For what? To rethink the size of Imena living. Her expression changed slightly. Meaning, you've built something impressive. Nobody can take that away from you. But bigger isn't always better. We aren't discussing expansion. We're discussing one difficult quarter. Exactly. And difficult quarters expose weak structures. Ariella folded her arms. What structure do you think is weak? You. She blinked. Cedric quickly clarified. Not your talent, your workload. That isn't the same thing. You carry too much. I own the company. You employ people who can carry more. I do, then let them. Ariella looked at the financial projections again. I already delegate. Not enough. His tone remained calm, almost affectionate. That made the conversation harder to resist. Cedric reached for her hand. You know I admire your ambition. Ariella gave him a tired smile. That sentence usually has a but attached. He smiled. Fine, but I don't understand why your life has to remain this demanding. Because building something worthwhile is demanding, for now. Ariella slowly withdrew her hand. What does that mean? Cedric glanced around the studio. It means we're talking seriously about a future together. Yes, and if we get married one day, our lives will change. Of course, you won't need to carry this business like your survival depends on it. Something inside Ariella went still. My survival doesn't depend on it. Then why do you treat it that way? Because I care about it. Cedric sighed. I knew you'd hear this as criticism. How should I hear it? As someone offering you an easier life. Ariella stared at him. What exactly is the easier life? Cedric gestured toward the spreadsheet. Not sitting in an office worrying about payroll. Not chasing clients who change their minds. Not sacrificing weekends for fabric selections and construction delays. And what would I be doing instead? Whatever you want. I want this. The simplicity of her answer seemed to frustrate him. Ariella, don't be defensive. I'm not defensive. I'm answering you. You always assume I'm trying to take something from you. No, I'm trying to understand why every solution you suggest requires less of the life I built before you. Cedric's jaw tightened. That isn't fair, isn't it? He stood and walked toward the windows. I've supported you from the beginning, I know. I've celebrated your contracts. Yes, I've introduced you to people who could help your business. You have. Then why are you making me sound controlling? Ariella was quiet because she had not used that word. Cedric had. He turned back. I just think there should be balance. So do I. Do you? His question landed sharply. You're always working. When I ask for your time, I sometimes feel like I have to book an appointment. That isn't true. Maybe not to you. Ariella stood. Then tell me what you actually want. Cedric hesitated. I want a partner who understands that marriage can't come second to a career. And I want a partner who doesn't assume my career must come second to marriage. Silence filled the room. For the first time, Ariella understood that they were not discussing scheduling. They were discussing identity. Cedric lowered his voice. I think what Didier did has made you suspicious of any man who asks anything from you. Ariella froze. Don't, I'm not insulting you. Then don't use what Didier did to explain why I disagree with you. I'm trying to understand you. No, you're making my disagreement a symptom of my past. Cedric stared at her. Ariella felt something inside her become unexpectedly clear. She had spent months telling herself Cedric was different because he had never lied to her. But honesty was not the only thing a woman needed from love. She needed room for ambition, room for disagreement, room to remain recognizable to herself. Cedric moved closer. I love you, Ariella. She looked at him. Do you love me? His face softened. You know I do. Or do you love the version of me that fits most easily into the life you've already designed? Ariella, I changed dinners. I changed plans. I stepped back from Mugisha because you were uncomfortable. I missed opportunities because I wanted you to feel prioritized. I never forced you to do any of that. The words struck harder than he intended. Ariella slowly nodded. No, Cedric looked confused. She continued quietly. You didn't. That was precisely the problem she was finally beginning to understand. Nobody had ordered Ariella to become smaller. She had been doing it herself, one reasonable compromise at a time, because she was afraid another relationship would fail if she did not work hard enough to deserve its success. Her gaze moved toward the cobalt blue sketchbook sitting untouched beneath a stack of presentation folders. She pulled it free. Dust marked one corner. Cedric watched her. "What are you doing?" Ariella ran her thumb across the cover. "Remembering something?" "What?" She looked at him. "That before I started asking whether everything I wanted was inconvenient to someone else, I actually knew what I wanted." Cedric's expression hardened. "So now I'm the problem." Ariella shook her head. "No!" She held the sketchbook against her chest. "But I think I finally realized that I am responsible for what I keep surrendering." That distinction mattered, because growth did not always begin when a woman discovered that someone else had treated her badly. Sometimes it began when she finally noticed all the ways she had abandoned herself to keep being loved. The cobalt blue sketchbook rested in Ariella Nyirabazungu's lap as she sat across from Cedric Inshuti in the living room of her Nyarutarama apartment. Outside the floor to sailing windows, Kigali glittered across the hills. Inside, warm pendant lights reflected against polished walnut furniture. Cream halls, the contemporary Imigongo-inspired artwork Ariella had chosen long before Cedric entered her life. Tonight, she wore a flowing saffron dress with bold geometric earrings. She had chosen every piece herself. Cedric noticed immediately. "You look beautiful." "Thank you." He sat opposite her in a tailored navy jacket. For several moments, neither spoke. Cedric finally leaned forward. "So what is this?" "A conversation we should have had earlier." His expression tightened. "Ariella, if this is still about what I said at your studio, it isn't about one conversation. Then what is it about?" She looked down at the sketchbook. For several days, she had tried to identify the precise moment their relationship became uncomfortable. There wasn't. That was the problem. Nothing had broken dramatically. Instead, Ariella had disappeared by inches. A dress changed here. A professional opportunity surrendered there. A friendship reduced because someone else felt threatened by it. A plan rearranged. An opinion softened. None of those choices had seemed important enough to defend individually. Together, they had become a life she no longer recognized. "I don't think we should continue this relationship," she said. Cedric stared at her. "What? I want us to end it." He sat back. "You're serious?" "Yes." Cedric gave a short, disbelieving laugh. "Because I suggested you reduce your workload?" "No." "Because I was uncomfortable with Mugisha?" "No." "Then explain it." Ariella met his eyes. "Because I've spent too much of this relationship trying to prove that I know how to be in one." Cedric frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It does to me. I've never asked you to prove anything." "I know." "Then why are you blaming me?" "I'm not." The answer surprised him. Ariella placed the sketchbook on the coffee table. "I've been thinking about everything I changed since we started dating. Some things you suggested, some things I assumed you wanted, some things I changed before you even had to ask." Cedric spread his hands. "And somehow that's my fault." "No." Her voice remained calm. "It's my responsibility." Cedric went quiet. Ariella continued. "That's why I'm not sitting here calling you a monster. You're not. One. Thank you, I suppose. But you're looking for a woman who wants a different kind of partnership. I want a wife who understands priorities. And I want a marriage where my work isn't automatically treated as the thing that should shrink whenever life becomes complicated." Cedric shook his head. "I never told you to quit. You didn't have to. That isn't fair." "Maybe not. But fairness doesn't require us to stay together when we want fundamentally different lives." Cedric stood and walked toward the windows. "You know what I think?" Ariella waited. "I think you're scared. Maybe. You were betrayed once, and now the moment a relationship took a sacrifice. You run." Ariella absorbed the words without flinching. Months earlier, they might have worked. They might have sent her scrambling to prove that she was loyal, mature, healed. Not anymore. "Perhaps I am scared," she said. "But fear isn't always telling you to run from something good. Sometimes it's reminding you that you've abandoned yourself for four." Cedric turned. "And Mugisha?" There it was. Ariella's expression hardened slightly. What about him? Is this really about us, or have you finally decided you want him? No, Cedric studied her. You expect me to believe that? Yes, because it's true. You've known that man for years. Exactly. And now, suddenly, after we're having problems. Stop. Cedric fell silent. Ariella stood. I am not leaving you for Mugisha. Then, why does his name always appear whenever we're discussing boundaries? Because you could never understood what that friendship meant to me. And you never understood how it looked to the man dating you. Ariella nodded. Maybe that's another reason we're wrong for each other. Cedric stared at her. There was pain in his expression now, not merely frustration, and Ariella allowed herself to see it. Ending a relationship did not require pretending the other person felt nothing. I did love you, Cedric said quietly. I know, did you love? Yes. The answer was immediate. That seemed to hurt him more. Then, how can you walk away this calmly? Ariella's eyes softened. Cause compatibility and the same thing. Cedric looked away. For the first time, neither of them had anything left to argue. He collected his keys from the console. At the door, he paused. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. Ariella glanced around her apartment. The artwork, the furniture, the design samples, the cobalt sketchbook waiting on the table. I think that's the problem, she said softly. I kept looking for it in someone else. Cedric left. The door closed, stood alone. No dramatic music filled the room. No sudden relief washed over her. She simply felt sad and strangely clear. Her phone lay nearby. For one dangerous second, instinct told her to call Mugisha. She picked it up, then stopped. If she called him now, she knew he would answer. He would listen. He would probably arrive carrying coffee and some ridiculous joke designed to make her breathe easier. But Ariella placed the phone back down. This ending belonged to her. She would not turn one man's absence into another man's responsibility. Instead, she picked up the cobalt sketchbook. She opened it. Several blank pages waited. Ariella found a pencil and began drawing. At first, her hand felt stiff. Then lines appeared. A courtyard, trees, warm stone, a long communal table beneath a shaded canopy, a space where people could gather without feeling crowded, a place where there was room to breathe. Ariella stopped and looked at what she had drawn. She smiled, not because Cedric was gone, not because another man might someday replace him, but because of something she thought she had lost was beginning to return. Herself. For the first time after 2 relationships that had taught her very different kinds of pain, Ariella did not choose another man. She chose space. She chose her work. She chose the friendships she had neglected. She chose the uncomfortable responsibility of understanding her own patterns. Most importantly, she chose not to make love the measure of whether her life was complete. The first time Ariella truly chose herself did not look like revenge. It looked like an open sketchbook, a quiet apartment, and a woman finally giving herself permission to take up space again. Ariella Nyirabazungu stood beneath the timber canopy of a newly completed community courtyard in Kigali, studying the space she had once drawn inside her cobalt blue sketchbook. Now it was real. Warm stone pathways curved between native plants. Contemporary benches surrounded a long communal table, while geometric panels inspired by Rwanda design filtered the evening light into elegant patterns across the ground. Children were not part of the project's opening event. The gathering was for adult residents, local entrepreneurs, designers, and community representatives who had helped shape the space. Ariella ran her fingers across the edge of the table. You changed the stone. The familiar voice behind her made her smile before she turned. Mugisha Rukundo stood several steps away wearing a rust-colored linen shirt beneath a tailored charcoal jacket. You noticed? I argued for the original stone for 3 meetings. 4. Was it 4? You sent me a very dramatic email after the last one. I was defending architectural integrity. You called my material choice emotionally irresponsible. Mugisha smiled. It was a difficult period in my life. Ariella laughed. She had missed this, not simply him, this version of herself around him. There was no careful editing of sentences, no wondering whether a joke might be misunderstood, no invisible calculation before expressing disagreement. She could simply speak. Mugisha walked beside her through the courtyard. The final design works, he admitted. Ariella looked at him suspiciously. Say that again? No, I need witnesses. You'll abuse the evidence. Their shoulders almost touched. Neither moved away quickly. That small moment carried a new awkwardness between them. Their friendship had slowly returned after Ariella ended things with Cedric, but it had not returned exactly as it had been. Perhaps Ariella had changed. Perhaps she had simply started noticing things she had ignored before. The way Mugisha listened without preparing his response. The way he disagreed without making disagreement feel like disrespect. The way he could admire her work without needing to explain how she should do it differently. Most dangerously, she had started noticing his smile. That was new. Or maybe it wasn't. Mugisha stopped beside a planter. You've been drawing again. Ariella held the sketchbook against her side. Every day. Good. That's all? What do you want, applause? At minimum. Mugisha clapped twice. Ariella stared at him. That was insulting. You requested applause. You didn't specify enthusiasm. She laughed again. Then the laughter faded into something quieter. I owe you an apology. Mugisha's expression changed. For what? For disappearing. You didn't disappear. I did from you. He looked toward the courtyard. Ariella, let me finish. He nodded. When Cedric became uncomfortable with our friendship, I started treating you like something I needed to manage. Mugisha said nothing. I answered less, stopped making plans, made you pay for a problem you didn't create. You were trying to protect your relationship. That doesn't make it fair. No, the honesty surprised her. Ariella smiled faintly. You could pretend to disagree. You'd know. Yes, Mugisha slipped his hands into his pockets. It hurt. Her smile disappeared. But I understood. Why didn't you say anything? Because what was I supposed to say? Leave your boyfriend because your best friend misses you? You could have told me I was being ridiculous. I considered it. She nudged his arm. Mugisha smiled, then became serious again. I also needed distance from me? Yes. Something in his voice made Ariella look at him differently. Mugisha, he exhaled slowly. There were conversations people spent years avoiding because silence felt safer than whatever truth might replace it. This was one of them. I loved you, he said. Ariella stopped breathing for a moment. Mugisha corrected himself. No, that's dishonest. Her heart beat harder. I love you. The courtyard seemed suddenly too quiet. Ariella stared at him. For how long? Long enough that answering that question would embarrass both of us. Mugisha, years. She looked away. Fragments of their friendship rearranged themselves inside her memory. Coffee arriving before difficult presentations, calls after disappointing contracts, the cobalt sketchbook, his silence after Didier, his patience when Cedric entered her life. You never said anything. You never looked at me that way. How do you know? You once described me as the brother Kigali forgot to give you. Ariella covered her face. Oh no. Yes, I said that with confidence. She groaned. Mugisha laughed softly. Then Ariella lowered her hands. I don't see you that way anymore. His smile disappeared. Mugisha, I think something changed. He watched her carefully. For me too. She stepped closer. Then maybe we should. No. Ariella froze. No, Mugisha's voice remained gentle. Not yet. Confusion crossed her face. You just told me you love me. I do. And I just told you. I heard you. Then what are we doing? Mugisha looked directly into her eyes, making sure I'm not becoming medicine. The words silenced her. You've come out of two relationships that changed the way you see yourself, he continued. Didier betrayed your trust. Cedric made you question how much space you were allowed to occupy. And you think I don't know what I feel. I think you do. Then why stopped me? Because loving you doesn't mean I've been waiting on a shelf for you. Ariella's expression softened. Mugisha continued. I have a life too. I have dignity. And if we cross this line, I don't want to spend our relationship wondering whether you chose me because I'm familiar, because I'm safe, or because two other men disappointed you. Ariella swallowed. What do you want? I want you to choose me only if you actually want me. I might. Then you'll still want me when there's nothing to escape from. Ariella looked down at the sketchbook in her hand. Once, she would have interpreted his hesitation as rejection. Now she understood something different. Mugisha was setting a boundary, not to control her, to protect both of them. She looked back at him. You've become inconveniently wise. I've been practicing. Ariella smiled. So what happens now? We finish this project, and after that, we live our lives. That sounds terribly unromantic. Healthy things often have poor marketing. She laughed. They continued walking through the courtyard. Nothing had been resolved. There was no kiss beneath the lights, no dramatic declaration, no promise of forever. Yet Ariella felt strangely peaceful. For years, she had imagined true love as someone choosing her so completely that uncertainty disappeared. Now she was beginning to understand something more mature. Sometimes love was not the person rushing to claim you when you were vulnerable. Sometimes it was the person who cared enough to wait until your choice truly belonged to you. And for the first time, Ariella wondered whether the safest love she had ever known had been standing beside her all along. The cobalt blue sketchbook lay open on Ariella Nirabazungu's dining table, surrounded by fabric samples, tracing paper, and 3 freshly sharpened pencils. Across the page, she had drawn the first concept for Amina Levin's newest project, a boutique wellness retreat designed around open courtyards, natural stones, woven Rwandan textures, and quiet spaces where guests could sit without feeling that every beautiful corner needed to become a photograph. Ariella stepped back from the table. Don't touch that. Mugisha Rukundo froze with his hand hovering over the sketchbook. I wasn't touching it. You were thinking about touching it. That is not yet a crime. It should be. He smiled. Mugisha stood in her apartment wearing a deep green linen shirt and tailored black trousers, carrying 2 ceramic bowls from the kitchen. Their relationship had changed slowly. That had been intentional. No dramatic confession had been followed by an immediate kiss. No one had rushed to announce anything. They had returned to dinners, long conversations, walks through completed projects, arguments about landscaping, coffee after difficult client meetings. Except now, Ariella noticed when Mugisha's hand rested briefly against the small of her back as they crossed a crowded room. She noticed when he looked at her for a second too long, and Mugisha no longer pretended not to notice when she looked back. He placed the bowls on the table. You've been drawing a lot, every day. Mugisha looked at the open sketchbook again. Good. Ariella narrowed her eyes. That's exactly what you said the last time. Consistency is a virtue. Laziness is not. I brought dinner. You reheated dinner. I participated in dinner. Ariella laughed and sat down. There was an ease between them that she once mistaken for the absence of romance. Now she understood that excitement did not always have to arrive with uncertainty. Sometimes attraction lived comfortably beside peace. Mugisha took the chair opposite her. So, he said, Kiza interrogated me. Ariella nearly dropped her spoon. She did what? She invited me for coffee. That sounds harmless. It was an ambush. Ariella tried not to smile. What did she ask? Whether my intentions toward her precious best friend are honorable. She did not say that. She used more modern vocabulary, but spiritually, that was the conversation. Ariella laughed. What did you tell her? That you're difficult, argumentative, stubborn about lighting temperatures, and incapable of admitting when a landscape architect is correct. Ariella stared at him. And she let you leave alive? I also said I love you. The humor vanished from the room. Mugisha did not look away, neither did Ariella. The words felt different now, not dangerous, not urgent, just true. Ariella folded her hands on the table. I've been thinking about what you said at the courtyard. That sounds threatening. You told me you didn't want to become medicine. Mugisha's expression softened. I remember. I was angry. I noticed. I thought you were deciding what I felt before giving me the chance to understand it myself. That wasn't my intention. I know that now. Ariella looked toward the windows. Kigali glittered beyond the glass, elegant and familiar. I needed the space you gave me. Mugisha stayed silent. I needed to know what my life looked like when I wasn't recovering from Didier, wasn't trying to make Cedric work, and wasn't wondering whether another relationship could prove something about me. And Ariella looked back at him. My life is good. A quiet smile touched Mugisha's face. That isn't the answer most men hope to hear during a romantic conversation. Let me finish. He made a gesture of surrender. Ariella continued. My company is stable. I'm designing again. Keza still criticizes me professionally and without invitation. A public service. I've rebuilt friendships I neglected. I enjoy going home to my own apartment. I don't wake up feeling like something is missing because I'm not engaged. She paused. And I still want you. Mugisha's smile disappeared. Ariella felt her heart beat harder. Not because you're safe. He said nothing. Not because Didier betrayed me. She stood. Not because Cedric and I wanted different lives. Mugisha rose too. Ariella walked around the table until only a few feet separated them. I want you because when something good happens, you're one of the first people I want to tell, she swallowed. Because you make me laugh when I'm taking myself too seriously. Mugisha's eyes softened. Because you challenge me without asking me to become smaller, Ariella, and because apparently, after years of pretending otherwise, I find you extremely attractive. Mugisha blinked. Apparently, don't ruin this. I wouldn't dare. Ariella smiled, then became serious. I don't need you to rescue me. I know. I don't need you to complete me. I definitely know. She slapped his arm lightly. Mugisha laughed. Ariella continued, but I would like to build something with you. He looked at her for a long moment. Slowly, painfully slowly if necessary. Honestly, even when honesty is inconvenient. And when we disagree, you will eventually accept that I'm right. There she is. Ariella laughed. Mugisha reached for her hand. This time she let him take it. I have one condition, he said. Already? Yes, what? You never call me your brother again. Ariella covered her face. You promised to forget that. I promised nothing. Mugisha. I survived years of emotional damage from that sentence. She lowered her hands. Fine. Fine. You are officially removed from the brother category. Progress. Ariella shook her head. Then Mugisha became quiet. Can I kiss you? The question surprised her, not because she had not expected the kiss, because he had asked. Ariella smiled. Yes. There were no fireworks beyond the windows, no audience applauded, no grand declaration followed. Mugisha simply leaned forward and kissed the woman he had loved for years, and Ariella kissed the man she had finally learned to see clearly. When they separated, she rested her forehead briefly against his. This is strange. Bad strange? No, she smiled. Different. Good different? I think so. Mugisha glanced toward the dining table. His eyes landed on the cobalt sketchbook. Ariella followed his gaze. You're drawing again, he said. She smiled. Every day. That was the answer that mattered most. Not that Ariella had finally found the right man. Not that Mugisha had finally been rewarded for waiting. Neither of them belonged to the other as a prize. The real victory was simpler. Ariella had entered love again without abandoning the woman she had fought so hard to recover. Her sketchbook remained open. Her career still mattered. Her friendships remained hers. Her voice had not become quieter, and the man standing beside her did not need any of those things to disappear in order to feel loved. Ariella had spent years believing true love would be recognizable because someone would choose her completely. She finally understood that mature love asked for something more balanced. Two people choosing each other without requiring either one to disappear. Sometimes the love a woman spends years searching for is not hidden because it is far away. Sometimes it has simply been standing close enough to become familiar, waiting not to rescue her, but to meet her when she is finally ready to arrive as herself. Ariella stood inside Imina Living's expanded studio, surrounded by warm walnut shelves, vibrant Rwandan textiles, and framed sketches from projects she once believed she might never have the confidence to create. The cobalt blue sketchbook still occupied the center of her desk, only now its pages were nearly full. Mugisha had not rescued her company, managed her choices, or asked her to build her future around him. He had simply built his own life beside hers. Their relationship grew through ordinary things, shared meals, difficult conversations, family gatherings, professional disagreements, and the freedom to sometimes choose separate plans without treating independence as rejection. When Mugisha eventually asked Ariella to marry him, there was no crowded ballroom or extravagant public performance. He asked inside the community courtyard they had designed together, beneath the timber canopy where their friendship had first become honest love. Ariella looked at him and smiled before saying yes, not because marriage would finally complete her story, but because she already loved the life she was bringing into it. Later, she opened her sketchbook and wrote beneath a drawing of two separate paths meeting beneath the same tree. The right love did not give me back my life. It gave me room to keep living it. Ariella's journey offers a lesson deeper than simply choosing a loyal man over an unfaithful one. Didier taught her that love without honesty cannot create trust. Cedric taught her something less obvious. A relationship does not need betrayal to become unhealthy for you. Sometimes, these people can want fundamentally different versions of partnership, and staying together can slowly require one person to surrender too much. But Ariella's most important lesson came from herself. She realized that boundaries are not only rules we give other people, they are promises we make to ourselves about what we will no longer abandon just to remain loved. Mugisha was not valuable because he waited the longest. He was valuable because he respected Ariella's freedom, even when that freedom might not choose him. And Ariella became ready for healthy love only when she stopped using relationships as evidence of her worth. Perhaps that is the question worth carrying beyond this story. When you imagine the person you love, do you only ask how much they love you? Or do you also ask who you are becoming beside them? The healthiest love does not demand that one person becomes smaller so the relationship can survive. It creates enough room for both people to grow.